What's up everyone, GameDad here. Well, the time is here. We are at the final part 6 of my current NES collection. So we're gonna dive in and check out what games are left on the list. Super Mario Bros. 3 was released by Nintendo in 1990 and is a continuation of this classic franchise on the NES. This one was the first one to truly have an overworld and really introduce you to a bunch of new worlds that Mario had to offer. The Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt World Class Track Meet cart was released by Nintendo in 1990 and is a fun combination cart giving you 3 classic Nintendo games all in one. It gives you the classic Mario Bros. Duck Hunt and then it adds World Class Track Meet to the mix. Super Off-Road was released by Rare in 1990 and gives you that classic arcade action feel on the NES. Sure, the graphics aren't as great as an arcade machine, but it still gets the job done, and it's a lot of fun to be able to play that top-down kind of style arcade game where you just race around the track and have a blast. Super Team Games was released by Human Entertainment in 1988, and it takes the typical style of different kind of like track meet games or multi kind of Olympic game carts, and it makes it a little more kid friendly, plus it lets you use the power pad. Superman was released for the NES by Kemco in 1988, and I gotta be honest, this is not a very good game. I mean, it's kind of weird graphically, it seems really simplistic even for the NES, and it just doesn't really make much sense. TNC Surf Designs Wood and Water Rage was released by Atlas in 1988, and this game kind of combines a lot of different things like, say, from Skater Die, 720, games like that, and puts it all in one, and I gotta be honest, it's actually pretty fun. Tecmo NBA Basketball was released by Sculptured Software in 1992 and is a lot like many other basketball games on the NES. It lets you choose your teams, it lets you go through not necessarily a full season of play, but it lets you go through, play different games, you can do CPU, and it's pretty fun. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released by Konami in 1989, and this game combines a lot of top-down and side-scrolling action. This is a classic game, but it also has a classically hard level with that underwater dynamite at the dam. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, was released by Konami in 1990 and brings the actual TMNT arcade game from arcade cabinets to the NES. And I gotta say, it's actually a pretty decent port. Obviously, the graphics aren't as good as an arcade machine, but all the gameplay is there and it's still a ton of fun. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project, was released by Konami in 1992, and this one kind of combines the feel of the first game with the arcade action of the second. This one, personally, is my favorite on the NES and is a ton of fun to play. Tennis was released by Nintendo in 1985 and is exactly what you would expect. It's tennis on the NES. Instead of having a classic Pong style where it's going left to right, as you can see, it's going from bottom to top, top to bottom. And the game overall is pretty basic in nature, but I mean, it's alright. Tetris was released by Nintendo in 1989 and is the same game that you know and love from every other console that it's always been on. And it's Tetris. I mean, what more is there to say? The blocks drop, you get your Tetris lines, and you keep going. Tetris 2 was released by Nintendo in 1993, so this one is actually a pretty late release on the NES. It takes classic Tetris, and it adds a few new options and different quirks to the game, and it gives it more, to me, of a Dr. Mario kind of feel. Tiny Toons Adventures was released by Konami in 1991, and in this game, you follow along with the different characters from Tiny Toons, and you just have a blast. It's a typical action platformer. It definitely has a Bugs Bunny 50th anniversary kind of feel to it graphically. Tiny Toons Adventures 2, Trouble in Wackyland, was released by Konami in 1993, so this is another fairly late release in the NES life cycle, but this one, it added more of an option to choose zones that you went to, and as you can see here, I'm actually playing as Babs instead. To the Earth was released by Cirque Verte in 1989, and in this game, I was actually having a lot of trouble getting my Retron 5 to be able to pick up the footage effectively on it, so I don't know a lot about this game, but, I mean, it looks kind of cool from the cover. Top Gun was released by Konami in 1987 and has a reputation for being kind of a difficult game. Overall, the gameplay is pretty basic. You go around, you shoot some stuff, and then you land on an aircraft carrier, and that's really about it. Total Recall was released by Interplay Entertainment in 1990 and attempts to recreate in video game form its namesake from the movie Total Recall. Now, I don't think it follows it too closely, but overall it's kind of just a fun little beat 'em up. Track and Field was released by Kemco in 1987, and in this game you get to go through various track and field events, as you can see in the list here, and you just button mash until you get the score that you want to get, or until you beat that CPU. Track and Field 2 was released by Konami in 1989 and takes the exact same premise that the first game had, but it adds more of an Olympic feel to it. So you feel like the stakes are a little bit higher, and it gives you a few different events. Ultima 3 Exodus was released by FCI in 1989 and is a classic RPG style game on the NES. It's a lot of fun, it has a very Final Fantasy feel to it, and it's just a great game to have in the collection. Vegas Dream was released by HAL America in 1990 and is exactly what you would expect from the cover. You get to go through, play a few different Vegas gambling style games, and just have some fun. Video Mayshen was released by THQ in 1991, and in this game it's not so much a game as it is something where you get to kind of animate different pictures and add things to it and work kind of like a video editor. Wheel of Fortune was released by GameTech in 1988 and is just that classic TV game show, Wheel of Fortune. You get to go through, pick some different players if you want, add some computer players, and then you just play the game. Willow was released by Capcom in 1989 and is another one of those video game adaptations of a movie. This one, I feel, is actually one where it's pretty fun, though. You go through, you're playing as Willow, and you just have a blast going on this epic adventure. Wizards and Warriors was released by Acclaim Entertainment in 1987 and is, to me, kind of a peculiar game. I mean, it shows a map and everything, kind of like Castlevania kind of status, but it's a very strange kind of platforming, side-scrolling adventure game. Wizards and Warriors 3 was released by Acclaim in 1992, and in this game you have a lot of the same that you did in the original, with some better graphics, a little bit more polished gameplay, but still, it's a very peculiar kind of action-adventure, side-scrolling kind of game. World Class Track Meet was released by Nintendo in 1988 for use with the Nintendo Power Pad. But this game is kind of infamous because it's actually a total rebrand of the Bandai Stadium Events game, which is arguably the most expensive NES game in existence. World Games was released by Milton Bradley Company in 1989 and follows the same kind of path that a lot of these different sports games do. They give you a few events, you compete in them, you can go as different countries, go against a CPU, and that's really it. Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego was released by Konami in 1989 and is just another one of those old school Carmen Sandiego games. They had a bunch of them, Where in the World, Where in Time, and you just go around trying to find Carmen Sandiego. Wrath of the Black Manta was released by Taito in 1990, and this one is an action side-scroller, and it has elements of a beat-em-up, but also elements of like a Shinobi or a Ninja Gaiden kind of game. Wrecking Crew was released by Nintendo in 1985 and is another one of those awesome launch titles that came out for the console during its first year. In this game, you go through and the whole idea is just to wreck everything in sight so you can get the most points while avoiding enemies. WWF WrestleMania Challenge was released by LJN in 1990, and in this game you get classic WrestleMania action. You go through, you fight as different characters, and you just beat the heck out of your opponent in the ring. Xenophobe was released by Sunsoft in 1988, and in this game, it is your job to rid different star bases and different things of the overrun hordes of different aliens. So you just got to go through, kill all the baddies, and win the game. Yo Noid was released by Capcom in 1990, and this game I remember pretty well from my childhood because it was just a super fun action platformer where you went around playing as this weird dude in a bunny rabbit suit collecting pizzas and hitting people with a yo-yo. Very weird, but very fun. Up next, we have Yoshi, released by Nintendo in 1992, and in this game, you are playing a kind of Tetris-style game, but you actually get to swap all of your stuff around even after it's been dropped. So it adds a nice little bit of unique gameplay to it. Yoshi's Cookie was released by Nintendo in 1993 and is another one of those late release titles for the console. Now, this is very much another Tetris style game, but again, they give it a unique twist with the way that you have to match your different objects, so it does keep it fun and interesting. The Legend of Zelda was released by Nintendo in 1987 and is the game that started probably my most admired and most favorite franchise from Nintendo of all time. This game, I mean, there isn't really much I can say about it other than it's a masterpiece. Now we have Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, released by Nintendo in 1988, and this game is also an excellent game, but for totally different reasons. They added different side-scrolling, they added a very different kind of overworld map, but overall the game is still a ton of fun. Now for a few games I got after I started making this series of collection videos. First up is Demon Sword, released by Taito in 1990, and this one feels very run and gun, but ninja style. So as you can see, you're throwing stars and using your sword instead. Up next is The Guardian Legend, released by Nintendo in 1989, and from what I can tell, this is another kind of action RPG style game, but again, my Retron 5 was having some issues getting playback on this one, so I'll have to try and capture some footage for this later. Up next, we have Mappyland, released by Taxon in 1989, and in this game, you run around playing as a happy little mouse collecting various objects while avoiding enemies. Super simple gaming concept, but the game is actually really bright, colorful, and kind of fun. Now here we have Metal Storm, released by Irem in 1991, and this game is kind of one of those hidden gems on the NES. Not a lot of people know very much about it, but it's actually a super fun game, and this one is going to be getting a collector's edition re-release here within the next year or so. Powerblade was released by Taito in 1991, and in this game you go around and you're actually using this blade that looks kind of like a boomerang, and that's your primary weapon to go around and just beat up the baddies. Adventure Island 2 was released by Hudson Soft in 1991 and takes the same classic gameplay of the first Adventure Island and just improves upon it. You get slightly better graphics, you get seemingly an overworld, and you get that same classic gameplay action that you would expect. And here we have another Nintendo classic. This is Ice Climber, released by Nintendo in 1985. And in this game, what you have to do is climb your way to the top using the brother and sister combo and fight off the baddies as you go. Jurassic Park was released by Ocean Software in 1993, and again is one of those late releases on the console. They released a lot of games in 93, and this one just takes the classic movie action and puts it in game form. Gives you kind of a top-down view and is actually pretty fun. The Rocketeer was released by Bandai in 1991 and tries to pull off a video game version of a movie, and it does an okay job, but overall the game really isn't that fun to me. So there you have it, everyone. That is everything that is currently in my NES collection. Now, did you guys notice any glaring gaps in my collection? Any games that I should be adding or on the lookout for? Maybe some common games that I'm missing that are a lot of fun, or maybe some of those more rare ones. Let me know down in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please be sure to also hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as that little notification bell so you get an alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, as always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.